right, well, good afternoon. Thank you all very much for being here. First off, my name is Colonel Matthew Packard, P-A-C-K-A-R-D. It's my honor and privilege to serve as the Chief of the Colorado State Patrol. Just a couple of really quick housekeeping things. I think we talked about this already a little bit, but I'm going to give a statement, talk about what happened on Saturday morning. Also kind of talk about the state of affairs with our patrol cars and people being hit as they're doing their job. Once I'm done talking, it's kind of a weird logistics, and you can leave cameras here, but we've got a video queued up in a classroom behind you. It's about a 5-minute video that shows the incident where our trooper went over the bridge on Saturday morning. And so once we'll watch that, give you the opportunity to watch that, and then you can have what I said in the video to basically any questions that you might have that I'll work to answer it. So with that, the other thing I want to say before we get too far into this is we are anticipating criminal charges being filed based on the incidents that happened on Saturday morning. So important to remind you that, of course, everyone's innocent until proven guilty. And we still have to work through the DA's office in the 17th, Adams County specifically, to make sure those cases are investigated thoroughly and then presented for potential prosecution in coordination with the DA's office. So with that, this is not one of those conversations that you look forward to doing as the Chief of the Patrol, but I will tell you unequivocally, it could have been much, much worse. And when you look at what's happened in our state over the last several months, it's really easy to draw parallels where that did occur. So by the grace of God, today I'm standing here talking about patrol cars being hit and not people losing their lives on Saturday morning. And it's unequivocally, it's sheer luck. And I'll explain that to you with a little bit more detail here in a minute. But I want to start with a number. It's really important to me. In 2023, 12 of our patrol cars so far this year have been hit while they're parked on the side of the road or in a lane of traffic with their lights flashing with troopers that drove them there to do their job. 12. That is a precipitous increase from what we experienced last year. In 2022, the whole year we had 8. Here we are in the middle of July and we're already at 12. And there's some really prevailing themes that we see in these things. A quarter of them now were at the hands of somebody using alcohol or drugs or something else to impair their judgment when they were involved in operating a motor vehicle, and excessive speed. A lot of it in bad weather, but all of it boils down to is people that are making really poor decisions in a really dangerous environment. In an environment in Colorado where last year we saw record-breaking fatalities, 763 is the most recent number I've seen of people that lost their lives on Colorado's roadways. In 1 year, we have got to do something to reverse this trend. And our troopers are out there working every minute of every day trying to do just that. We are trying to get people to drive better, to do their job, and be responsible behind the wheel. And I'm asking for everybody's help. Lives are dependent upon decisions that are made behind the wheel of a car. That's it. You have one job when you're driving a car, and that's to do it responsibly. If you're going to drink, if you can afford to drink, then you sure as heck can afford to get yourself home or sleep where you are to do that responsibly. It's that simple, and lives are at risk. Last year, the patrol just alone, of all the fatalities that we investigated, over a third of those were at the hands of an impaired driver. Statewide, and really across the nation, about a third of the people that die in a car crash are at the hands of an impaired driver. This is something that is really, really challenging for me to understand, because it is such an obvious choice to just be responsible, realize that it's somebody else's life, their well-being, that is at risk when you make this selfish decision to drive drunk. Adams County in this state, Adams County leads the state in alcohol-related fatalities. Nobody else. At Adams County, that's where it is the worst. And that's where this really came to a point for us on Saturday morning. So I'm asking for everybody's help. I'm demanding it, quite frankly. This is what our job is to make sure that our roads are safe so our communities can be safe, and that is entirely contingent upon people making good decisions. I will tell you that this organization, the Colorado State Patrol, and all of its troopers, its comm officers, its port of entry officers, everybody that's a part of the State Patrol will be focused on this issue, saving lives on Colorado's roads. We were yesterday, and we are more and more so motivated to make sure that we're successful in this. But we need help. We need everybody to do the right thing. Do your job. Drive your car responsibly. When you see somebody making poor decisions, whether it's with alcohol or drugs or driving recklessly or speeding, do your job. Say something. Do something to make sure that people can be safe. So all of this stuff seems to have fallen apart for us on Saturday morning. So at roughly 2:38, the Colorado State Patrol was called to minor injury property damage crash on 270 at milepost 1. So it's in Adams County, just a little bit south and I suppose east of the I-270, I-76 interchange. Troopers were called to a single vehicle crash. Our first trooper arrived on scene and she began to investigate that, and she suspected that there might be alcohol impairment involved in that crash, and she began that investigation. A second trooper responded to that scene. Ultimately, they performed voluntary roadside maneuvers, and the determination was made that that driver was not under the influence of alcohol at the time of that incident. But nevertheless, our troopers had to stay on scene to complete that investigation and get it cleaned up, as you see our folks doing every day. About an hour later, at about 3:45 in the morning, the first of our patrol cars was struck. Our trooper had parked the vehicle with its lights on and other equipment out to warn approaching motorists, was blocking the right lane on 270 when a vehicle came into that scene at I would say, a very high rate of speed. That vehicle struck the rear of our patrol car, the left side of the patrol car. Thankfully, our trooper was not in the car. That vehicle rolled over, and that driver was injured, although not seriously. Troopers immediately suspected that impairment was involved, and they began to do their investigation into the impaired driving for that incident. Obviously that call went over the radio, and a third trooper that was starting his shift that morning responded to the scene to offer his assistance as we continued that investigation. That trooper arrived on scene a few minutes before 4:15 in the morning. Trooper arrived on scene. He parked his car initially at the rear, I would say the very beginning of that crash scene. After a brief exchange with the other troopers on scene, the decision was made to reposition his patrol car further up on the crash scene. So by explanation, I would say this scene started with the deployment of traffic cones. Those were deployed. There were also road flares that were deployed. And then the first patrol car, which for the record was the one that was previously struck, was still parked in the right lane. It had all of its lights going. Then we had two more of our patrol cars on scene, as well as an Adams County Sheriff's Deputy patrol vehicle was on scene. All of them in some configuration in the right lane, all of them with emergency lights activated. Trooper Kevin Bagley. Trooper Kevin Bagley is a 2-year trooper. He's a second-generation trooper for this organization. This is a family that has dedicated their professional life to the well-being of this state and to make sure this organization has its best foot forward in keeping people safe. Trooper Kevin Bagley, as I said, repositioned his patrol car. He moved up in the scene and was positioned between his car and a bridge rail right there at 270. He was monitoring our trooper that was now evaluating the sobriety of the driver from the first struck by incident or the second crash in the sequence, and they were at the very front of the scene in front of an Adams County vehicle. Trooper Bagley stood there, again was watching the trooper begin her process of administering roadside maneuvers and again monitoring traffic. Our third trooper that was on scene was back at the beginning, also making sure the road flares were in working order, were still lit, and also monitoring traffic. A vehicle came into the scene, I would say also at a high rate of speed. That vehicle collided first with some traffic cones. It went off towards the left. It looks like it probably collided with a guardrail or something on the left side of the road, and then came back to the right and collided with the left rear corner of what ended up being Trooper Bagley's patrol car. The driver of that vehicle continued its crash sequence and came to rest there at the scene. Trooper Bagley's patrol car began to move, I would say, south and west towards the bridge rail. In fact, towards the direction where Trooper Bagley was standing monitoring the situation. Trooper Bagley began to backpedal as his car was coming at him, obviously without a driver. And he backpedaled to the bridge rail and essentially fell over that bridge rail and fell to the shores of the South Platte River, about 30 feet below that bridge. As he landed, troopers immediately started responding to what was going on there at the scene. Our trooper that was administering roadsides first checked on the well-being of the suspected impaired driver from the first struck by incident. She was able to secure him in the back of the Adams County patrol vehicle, certainly checked on the other law enforcement folks that were there. The fire department was on scene as well from Adams County Fire. They began to respond and check on the driver of the third crash. And then it became pretty apparent that we were missing a trooper. And the troopers realized that Trooper Bagley had fallen over that bridge rail, and they were able to see him laying down below, and immediately ran down to do their best to provide him aid. By the grace of God, he was conscious by the time they got to him. Obviously, he was significantly injured. And I just, it warms my heart to see how our folks responded in that moment to take care of their fellow trooper. It was pretty amazing in the professionalism in which everybody on scene that day handled this really challenging situation. It is empowering, and it really points to how important the work that we do and the important that the work that every one of those troopers, deputies, and police officers out there that are trying to make our roads safer, how important that really is. The driver of the third crash, so the second struck by incident, the third crash, was also seriously injured in this incident. He was transported to an area hospital where he was treated, but he was later released later Saturday afternoon. And he is currently in custody of the Adams County Jail, where we booked him in on charges of vehicular assault with suspected impairment, vehicular assault with reckless driving, and we're evaluating potential additional charges in coordination with the Adams County the Adams County District Attorney's Office. The driver of the second crash, so the first struck by incident, and that person's name is Ivan Hernandez. He's a 23-year-old male, and we suspect him of driving under the influence as well. He was charged for driving under the influence, and we will continue to evaluate that crash for potential additional charges if appropriate. The driver of the first crash was an adult female, and we have not charged at this point. We will continue to evaluate potential charges for that crash. And again, person by the name, a 30-year-old male, Cesar Ayala Manriquez, was booked into the Adams County Jail on the felony charges related to the crash. Trooper Bagley went to University Hospital where he was treated over the course of Saturday, and I'm pleased to tell you that he was released from the hospital on Sunday afternoon, and he walked out on his own 2 feet, which is amazing to me. When you see, you go yourself and look at how far he fell and what he fell into, the fact that he walked out surrounded by a whole bunch of his fellow troopers, and he is now resting at home, and probably got a long road ahead of him to get better. But I'll just come back to this. We got lucky, and I'm not willing to rely on luck. So what I need is everybody to lean into this issue. And I'll say it again, just do your job. Do your job and be a responsible driver, and recognize the power that you have, the ability you have to have an influence on somebody else's life when you have control of a car. You can do the right thing and drive sober and drive with care and regard for the sanctity of human life and other folks, or you can do something that's far less palatable. You can drive recklessly, you can drive with excessive speed, you can drive under the influence of alcohol or some other substance, and you put everybody's life in danger. So whether you're doing it for Trooper Bagley, or you're doing it for your neighbor, your mother, the kid down the street, I got hundreds and hundreds of stories where people lost their lives or were seriously injured from the communities all across this state. Almost every day I get an email, I get a notice of somebody that died in a car crash in this state. And I can't find one that I go, there's nothing we could have done on that one. Every single one of them had someone chosen to be responsible, to exercise just a little bit of care and conscience. People's loved ones would still be here. Trooper Bagley would still be out there patrolling and working the roads today, because that was the beginning of his shift. So we're short a trooper, and we need him. So with that, I'll say it one more time. Do the right thing. Help us make sure that this state is as safe as it possibly can be, so the folks can go about their day and enjoy living and visiting Colorado. So with that, we'll hit pause, and we'll head over to that conference room, and we'll show the video. the second crash first.
the second car that he just hit pushed him off the bridge. More than one.
I guess we'll go back and fix some closing.
Where is this again? Is this like near the 76 interchange?
Just not quite a mile
South.
south.
Okay.
It's, the bridge is over that South Platte right there.
Got it.
Because I could go back.
So that was the third incident at that same location.
So before, you guys all good? So, before I open up for questions, I just want to talk about, I said it a couple of times, I want people to do their jobs. I want to explain and articulate a little bit how the Colorado State Patrol is going to do our jobs. And so in fact, all of these things were in the works, but I want to highlight them today so you can know what you can expect from your state troopers here moving forward. First off, I'm going to ask all of our troopers to lower their tolerance on crash-causing behaviors, the violations that we know that cause crashes. If you get stopped by a state trooper, you can expect to be cited at a minimum. We have zero tolerance for impaired driving. We will do everything we can to hold folks accountable that make a selfish decision to get behind the wheel of a car or get on a motorcycle or whatever else they might be driving and choose to drive impaired. In fact, we've just developed a statewide DUI task force team, for lack of a better term. It's a team of dedicated troopers that on a monthly basis, they're going to move around the state to where the data shows that we're having a problem, and they're going to do dedicated surge DUI-related enforcement efforts. In fact, the first one will be up in the northern Colorado, and I anticipate us to be in Adams County because we clearly have a problem there in the near future. The other thing that we're doing is we're working with all of our partner policing agencies around the state to do coordinated surge enforcement that again is data driven. We're going to go to the places where we know the most crashes are occurring and we're going to saturate that with strict enforcement efforts to try to help people convince people that they need to make better driving decisions. And this is about one thing for me, and it's about one thing for our troopers. We're trying to make this place a little bit safer. We're trying to save people's lives. And sometimes I'm accused of that sounding a little bit of cliche, but make no mistake that this organization exists for one thing. The Colorado State Patrol is here to save people's lives. And we are going to do everything we possibly can do to be better at that tomorrow than we are today. And we clearly have a lot of work to do, and it will not be for a lack of effort in our success. We are going to push as hard as we can to make this place as safe as we possibly can be. So with that, I'll go ahead and take any questions that you might have.
Colonel, at first, did y'all realize a trooper had gone off, or did it take a moment for the troopers to realize that Trooper Bagley had gone over the edge of the bridge?
I think in I would say it took a few seconds. The initial adrenaline rush, I suspect. You can see from the video, the other trooper was running away from that patrol car, so she didn't get hit. And it took a few moments before we realized that we were missing a trooper on scene. Of course, we had to make sure that everybody else was safe as well.
Chief, I've heard a message like this from you over and over again. Do you feel like you're shouting into the void?
Sometimes, but I tell you what, Steve, I'm not deterred. Like sometimes you got to tell people 1,002 times before they figure it out. And if it takes 10,002 times, I'll be there still. Like my message is undeterred because what we're talking about is that important. Eventually it's going to be someone you care about. Eventually it's going to be your neighbor, your friend, or something. And so we've all got to lean into this. And unfortunately, I count among the people that are a statistic as my friends, my co-workers, people that I loved and cared about. And nobody should go through that. And I take it as a personal point of responsibility to do everything I can to deter it from occurring again.
Will there be any policies that will change in terms of how you handle accident scenes or stop cars? And this one was on a bridge, I saw, but are you doing anything different to change the statewide policy that would impact how you stop cars and where you stop cars?
You know, I appreciate the question. I'm gonna give you a long answer, but something that we work really hard here in the Colorado State Patrol is something called traffic incident management. All of you are well aware of the tragedies that our organization experienced over the course of our entire existence, but really highlighting starting in 2015. And we made a lot of changes in this organization and really invested into something called traffic incident management. And what that is about is creating safe traffic incidents. And I will tell you, we are leaps and bounds in front of where we were 6, 7, 8 years ago. These scenes that we're managing, we are doing so in such a safer manner. And it's early. And I've watched some video, I've heard some accounts from the supervision that was on scene. And I got to tell you, I can't find first blush that we did anything wrong as far as a scene security perspective. We had deployed cones, we had deployed flares, we had lights going, we took the lane, we were doing a lot of stuff. But sometimes people overcome all of our efforts to keep a scene safe.
Is there pressure in a situation like this to keep the road open? Like after you had that second crash, why not shut down the highway as you're investigating that?
Yeah, so there's always some level of pressure to keep the roads open. We all live, most of us here live in Denver, and we understand the complexity of that and the disruption it causes. But the first thing I will tell you is that every trooper that's part of the Colorado State Patrol knows that if they think they need to close the road for their safety, and those are the people that are on scene, then they have every ounce of authority to do that. We do try to give them every tool and every bit of training so they don't have to do that, but to take as much as the road as they can, to do it as safe as they possibly can. But truth be told, the only way to make it completely safe is to close it entirely. And even then, people go through roadblocks. So it's always a balance. It truly is.
Chief, two of the names of the suspects are Hispanic names. Do you think the Hispanic community is more responsible behind the steering wheel?
I can't comment who's more responsible than another person in driving the car. But here's what I know, is people of all demographics, age, race, ethnicity, they're all victims to car crashes. And we've arrested all kinds of people from all different backgrounds for making poor decisions. So I'm not going to call out one specific sect of the community. It's all of us. And we all have a responsibility to make sure people drive safer.
What's the deal in Adams County, though? Is it just, you say there's a concentration, the most DUIs there, what's happening there, do you think?
You know what, I could guess, but all I know is I'm going to work with the district attorney's office, I'm going to work with the governor's office, I'm going to work with everybody that I can to find a multi-pronged solution to address that issue. I know what's in the bailiwick of the Colorado State Patrol, and that's to do education and strict enforcement. And so we're going to do that, but I recognize that whether it's in Adams County or in El Paso County and other places where we have a higher incidence than in other places, that we'll do everything we can to provide people an alternative to driving drunk. But I think what's frustrating in Adams County is it's not like we're resource thin there. Uber goes to Adams County, Lyft goes to Adams County, there's taxi cabs in Adams County, and there's a lot of people. So you can always pick up the friend, or there's a bed nearby that you can sleep in. There's just no excuse. There's just no excuse.
Do you call on local law enforcement agencies like Adams County to be better at speed and DUI enforcement? I mean, it seems like, there's a higher instance of DUI and speed. And a side question, I go the speed limit every day and people pass me like I'm standing still. And there's nobody writing tickets, speeding tickets to these people. So everybody gets used to just going 80, 85 miles an hour because they're not getting pulled over. How much do you blame local law enforcement or lack of for some of this stuff?
I don't blame anybody, that the person that's behind the wheel making the poor decision.
Do you ask
just,
them, do you say, hey, can you have more DUI traps and stuff?
Yeah, we work with every partner agency that's willing to work with us. And as I mentioned, we're actually in the process of developing a more robust schedule for surge enforcements with multi-agency response. We've had a tremendous success on the western slope in Mesa County in particular, where it's multi-agencies going on and attacking this issue. But I think the best way to answer your question is we all have priorities. In our local law enforcement, they have priorities in their communities to do all kinds of things. Traffic is our responsibility. We can't do it alone, but we will be the lead. We will step into any conversation and take the lead on a traffic safety perspective, because that's what we're here to do. So I'll take all the help I can get, and I'm not going to call anybody out for how they're assigning their priorities. I don't run those organizations, but I am in charge of this one, and we will do everything we can to partner with whoever wants to work with us to make this community safer.
Piggybacking off of Dan's question, you talked about changing your tolerance
It's kind of an individual assessment. And I will tell you, a trooper might give a verbal warning differently in the metro area than they might be in rural Colorado, just because of what you're talking about. I can give you my own experience. As a young trooper working in the metro area, I might make a decision to stop a car that's going just a little bit over the speed limit and know that I'm letting the person that's going a lot over the speed limit go by. So it's situational. And I guess my direction to my troopers is wherever you are today, I want you to ratchet it up. And I want you to be more attentive to those violations that we know are causing crashes. And we've got great data these days. Like, I can tell you that excessive speed is causing crashes. I can tell you that excessive speed is at the heart of most of our struck-by incidents. I can tell you that distracted driving because we've got the data to prove it. So when we see people weaving, you can see it in our social media, our outreach campaigns. The things that we're talking about are the ones that we know are causing crashes. And so again, to our troopers, it's lives dependent on it. So wherever we are, I think we need to step it up just a little bit more. To your point, we got to be more strict because people aren't getting the message.
Go ahead. Can you remark again about your reaction to the team on the ground when the incident happened? You were saying that you were proud of that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, you know what? There are a few things. I'm a father and I'm a husband, and that fills me with pride. In short of those people, I can't think of anything that I'm more prideful than to be a part of the Colorado State Patrol. And I'm proud of the work that we do. I'm honored to be a part of the work that we do, but that pride is 100% attributable to the people that I get to wear this uniform with, the people that I get to call fellow coworkers in the Colorado State Patrol. And where that pride comes from in so many different facets, but highlighted on Saturday morning at about 4:29 in the morning, is watch how they can respond in incredibly stressful and tragic situations. They're literally looking over the bridge rail at one of their friends, a guy that showed up to help them, and watch them prioritize other people. Like the person that we were investigating for impaired driving for hitting one of our patrol cars. Like, our trooper was worried about his safety and made sure that he was in a place that he could most safely possibly be in that moment. We walked through the person that caused this crash, allegedly, right? And we're worried about his safety. And then I watched these folks hop over guardrails and scale down these embankments to get to their brother. And then you watch how they're calming him, and they're working and trying to do everything they can to get him comfortable. Obviously, he's not. He just fell 30 feet off of a bridge. But they're doing everything they can to take care of him in that moment. They're not losing their head. They're not running around. They're focused. And it's amazing to watch. That's not a normal person response. That is a state trooper response, and I am proud to be associated with it.
What were the nature of the trooper's injuries?
Serious. I'm not gonna,
Did he break anything?
he had multiple serious injuries, and I won't get more specific than that.
Were any body cameras activated? I don't know if in a situation like this, if it would have shown the trooper going over the edge.
There's a lot of video that was recorded. Trooper Bagley actually didn't have a body camera on. Like I said, he had started his shift and was actually on his way to the office to go pick up his body camera when this incident occurred.
Colonel, did some of the other troopers have their cameras activated that would have shown the trooper going over, in addition to what we saw today?
There's a bunch of video. The only video that we found that actually shows that happen is the one you saw.
Okay, thank you. And one other question. I don't know where we are in terms of like DUI roadblocks. I think Dan mentioned something about some sort of enforcement. Are DUI roadblocks even legal in Colorado? Where you can, not roadblocks, but where you check
Checkpoints.
people coming,
Yeah.
checkpoints, thank you.
Yeah, DUI checkpoints are a thing. And in fact, if you look out behind this building, there's a really big, I'll call it an RV, that's not what it is, but a large vehicle. It will be a mobile DUI van for us where we can put an intoxilizer in. And part of our operational plan for that is to do potentially mobile checkpoints and other surge enforcements. There's different strategies. But the checkpoints are great, allow a lot of communication, a lot of press advance, talk about them. So we try to balance those with other surge enforcements and those types of things.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions, again, I sincerely appreciate you all coming out today. And I'll finish with an ask. Today we're talking about this because of the incident that happened on Saturday morning. And I would rather not have to do this again. And I harken back to, we are so lucky. Where he fell was softer than what he could have landed on to the left or to the right of where he fell. We got lucky. And I just don't want to rely on that. And I'm not foolish enough to think that I can solve this problem by myself. I'm not foolish enough to think that the Colorado State Patrol can solve this problem by ourselves. It's going to take all of us. To you all in the media and to the members in the community that have the opportunity to listen to this, tell this story and talk about how important this stuff is. If you have the opportunity to tell somebody what's at risk when you make this selfish decision to get behind the wheel of a car while you're impaired by something, tell them what's at risk. At least have that conversation. Studies will tell you that it's not the fall down drunk people that cause a lot of these crashes. Those people happen, they cause crashes, but it's this middle of the road, like the lower levels of intoxication where people's judgment is impaired. They can make this him and ha decision. I think I'm going to drive today. No, our law says you cannot drive a car when you're impaired to the slightest degree, and that's for a reason. That's because when you're impaired to the slightest degree, you are taking other people's lives in your hands. And you don't want to do that. Trust me. So please keep telling this story to folks so we can make Colorado safer.
Did you release the
Appreciate it.
blood alcohol content on the 2 persons who have been arrested?
We don't have it yet. We're still pending toxicology. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.